militant Islamists behead more than 50 in Mozambique. Over 50 people were recently beheaded in Muatide village in northern Mozambique by militant Islamists. The militants turned a football field in the village into an execution ground, where they decapitated and chopped the bodies, other reports said. The militants were associated with the Islamic State, or IS, or ISIS, giving the terrorist group a foothold in southern Africa. The group has a pattern of exploiting poverty and unemployment to recruit youth in their fight to establish Islamic rule in the area. The latest attack was likely the worst carried out by the militants. Mozambique's government has appealed for international aid to curb the insurgency, saying its troops need specialized training.
50 people at the same, in one day?
Over 50 people over a period of a couple of days, from from a Friday night into a Sunday morning, I believe. This happened last week when we were as we were covering the news, basically.
Some people I hate to break it down like this, but some people were beheaded at the village. Some people were abducted. Some women were abducted. Then they moved on to another place. Then they were catching people as they were fleeing. I mean, it was just heinous.
A massacre.
Okay. And do we know...
Bashir. Thank you for the $2 super chat, Bashir.
Thank you, Bashir.
Here, Armin, fully supportive of your cause. Great. You got someone who has your back, Armin, and it's Bashir. Thank you,
Bashir. Thank you so much. Do we know why all of a sudden this all happened at the same, in such a short amount of time in Mozambique? Do you have what's the background behind this? This seems crazy. We haven't had a story like this for a while.
Well, there was an episode in Mozambique within the past couple months of another really bad ISIS related or associated militant group massacring a village, basically. And it basically is mainly driven by resources. That's the impression that I've gotten anyways, based off of the research that I've done. I could be wrong. Like I said, they exploit poverty and unemployment to recruit people into IS, and part of this has to do with the gas resources in the Cabo Delgado province area. The beheadings are just the latest in a series of gruesome attacks that militants have carried out in the gas-rich Cabo Delgado province since 2017. So a lot of it has to do with trying to take control of resources. The insurgents are trying to take control of the oil fields that are in the area.
Okay, we got a super chat from AGA.
Thank you, AGA.
Thank you so much. That's a lot. 10 Australian dollars from AGA. Thank you so much. Whoa, that's a major super chat. Thank you so much.
Thank you, dear.
That's very generous.
Mm-hmm.
I do want to mention something, though. I haven't seen people talk about this much.
Really?
50 people.
I have.
Yeah. Well, you are different, Susanna. You hang around places where people on average, average people, this is 50 people. I think it's just because it's Mozambique.
So who I've seen talking about it is a lot of people who are involved in this Charlie Hebdo French secularism conversation. So I've seen kind of two flavors of talking about it. Neither of which I fully appreciate. So one is people saying, "Oh, how did French secularism? How is it to blame for this?" Making fun of people who are basically saying that French secularism was what caused the recent rise of terrorist attacks in France. And then there are other people saying, where is Black Lives Matter in this, blah, blah, blah. Neither of those I appreciate, because that fully detracts from the lives that were lost in this village. Like, that's not the issue at hand. Like, you're using this event and the lives, this massacre, for your own narrative against other people's bad apologetics for stuff, right? So I don't appreciate people detracting from what actually happened here in Mozambique.
I do think it's fair to point out that this is not getting the attention that it deserves, because I think African lives don't matter to people.
Yeah. Part of what happens also is, last time that there was a big attack that we covered a few months ago, partially because of the areas that it takes place in, partially because of language barriers, and probably partially because of, unfortunately, the lesser importance that people put on events like this that happen in Africa. It takes a little bit of time for this news to actually hit, like, Western shores or Western media.
No, but I think if anything like this have happened in any other country that people generally care about, it would have been like spread shockwaves across the planet. Do you know what I mean? Like, 50 people were, like, let's say, beheaded in, I don't know, even in a country like, I don't know, even in Eastern European countries, forget Western European countries, it would have been like crazy. And then also a lot of people think, I mean, I think a lot of people think like ISIS is also like gone, right?
ISIS.
Oh yeah, well, you already said that. Okay, so ISIS is gone, but the thing is that they're still there doing things. They're just doing it in countries where people care less about, right? They're doing their thing like they used to. They're just doing it in countries that people don't care much about. Anyways, Rivka,
I was gonna
Rivka, your
say
microphone is touching your blouse.
Okay, I can't win with you.
All right, it's okay. It's not me, Rivka. It's the audio. It's not me. If the audio sucks, I'm going to tell you the audio sucks. What do you want me to do? But go on.
Persians. Anyways, so I was going to say that also there are more Christians in the area that they're doing some of these beheadings than not. Now, it may be also sectarian, but there also happen to be a more Christian area. Then the thing about Susanna's point about it taking days sometimes to get to this media in the West, especially the Anglo media, like you probably would see it in the French media a little bit before, but even then, sometimes you can find out, even sometimes the bylines are 10 days even after. So there is this delay. And then with regard to people not caring about it, I would say there's a large percentage of the population who doesn't even know where Mozambique is, had never heard of it. It was pretty, basically just in the background of even parts of Africa. People heard of Zimbabwe, but they hadn't really ever heard of Mozambique for real, And so there's that, people just realizing that it even exists and where it is. And some of the things that I've heard as well is that this isn't just a result of French secularism. I've heard, Wogadishu, folks from Wogadishu making this argument about how it's colonialism from France, of course, that is actually the reason for this. And yeah, he mentioned that Macron did talk about it, but that's not surprising. That he is discussing these kind of things in his country, plus then also the relationship in France and certain parts of Africa and in the French press. And so, yeah, that's not surprising, but yeah, it's really a big issue that some of them, they're also saying that it's foreigners and insurgents from outside the country, or these outside agitators or outside insurgents are arming some of these people within the country. I mean, that's been some of the discussion as well. So And apparently this kind of started in October-ish. This has been an ongoing campaign of murder for a while. And
what I was referring to earlier was the attack that happened in April, where there was more than 50 people who were beheaded or shot dead in an attack. So that was back in April that happened, and that wasn't just 50 people straight up beheaded. That was a combination of murder. And then apparently, I didn't even hear about this, earlier this month, 9 people were beheaded in the same province.
And also a lot of this particular area where there's this big escalation of ISIS action, insurgency, and it's been increasing, and foreign fighters are coming in. You were mentioning resources. Yeah, it's a very forest-rich, gas-rich province, so it's potentially valuable resource-laden area. Oil and gas, so you have timber, oil, gas, these kind of things that you could potentially sell, and then also the fact that it's densely forested makes it easier to wage, guerrilla warfare too.
Yeah, for the attack that happened in April, it took almost a week, almost 2 weeks for news of it to reach English-speaking media. Yeah, the pictures are just horrifying.
All right, I'm going to read some of the comments. Wait, so this one is okay. No, okay. Paul is saying, "Never again the virtue signaling, poppy wearing masses declare, lest we forget. Yet the act of genocide has been. Well, I don't think this was genocide, but okay. The act of genocide has been and is allowed to go unchallenged by the world's powers, despite the promises made post-World War II and the international laws that followed that were supposed to prevent and punish such acts. When I see our governments wearing poppies whilst also acting as the world's biggest arm dealer, selling to the likes of Saudi Arabia and ignoring acts like this, it makes me sick." Okay, so as much as I would like to join Paul in criticizing the world for not doing more to stop these things, the agreement it's really easy to crap on international organizations and especially the United Nations and all these agreements for not managing to get these numbers to lower than they should be. But let's be fair, they had an impact. They had a major impact. Like, we haven't had world powers. I mean, there's still a lot of misery, a lot of war, a lot of killings, a lot of genocide, but it has been reduced significantly compared to what was the norm before. And these, people United Nations doesn't get much done. I mean, the world without United Nations would be much crappier than what it is right now. There is no other method for countries coming out and pressuring each other. Yes, obviously they fail a lot, but the times that they do not fail do not get as much attention as the times that they fail. Even right now, when it comes to wars within the most recent wars, there is no other alternative other than the already existing agreements of international organizations for countries to sit together and be like, hey, okay, let's come up with a plan to do an alternative. When it comes to pressuring countries to do more about even this news, there is no other alternative. So these organizations, these agreements fail often, but they also succeed often. The world is a lot better place right now because of all those international agreements that came into being after World War II. It is much differently. Please do not throw out the baby out with the bathwater just because you see examples of failure. Rivka, you had your hands up?
Okay, so yeah, I was thinking about this oil and gas stuff, and I remembered, and I looked it up on a security firm news site, and indeed they were saying, so since 2017 they're saying about 2,000 deaths from the attacks. Close to 500,000 people could be potentially homeless. But what they were mentioning in particular was in 2010, they discovered all these gas fields in this Cabo Delgado area. And so they have 3 liquefied natural gas projects called LNGs. And so these facilities could potentially be worth, according to this, security, firm that does security for projects like this, it's estimated to approximately cost 20 billion and production to start in 2024. Projects headed by Exxon, ENI, CNPC, all these billions of dollars. So there's been not just attacks on villages, but attacks on these sites as well. And the sites themselves have actually forced people out. So this issue of people being forced out and made homeless and resources and scarcity of resources is really being played upon by these groups, because people are already having issues prior to that from some of them being forced out from this gas project, plus the potential for it to be costing money, plus the potential for IS to mess up all this also Western and projects with the government, all kinds of things. It's like a perfect storm. They couldn't have written it any better if they had decided it for themselves.
Okay, so I'm gonna just finish reading the last 2 comments before we move on. Darn is saying evil and gruesome things are happening to Africans on a daily basis. No one around the world seems to care. If this happened in a European country or the Americas, the entire world would be disturbed. And the last comment I'm going to read is by Bobby. Bobby is saying it also. By the way, it's not nobody. Like people are talking about it, but yes, much less. That's what you mean. Bobby is saying it also says women were kidnapped. I think being beheaded is better than what those women are probably going through. I don't know about that, but okay. So. Thank you for joining us. Subscribe to our channel. Hit the bell thingy. If you haven't, I don't know why. What's holding you back? Okay. If you haven't subscribed to our channel, why haven't you subscribed to our channel? Explain that to us, please. Like, bell, and also if you're not getting notifications and stuff because YouTube is not telling people that we have shows, because YouTube is like, oh, this person told us that they want to get your shows, right? They want to get your videos, but nah, we think is no. And they also hit the bell button, but nah, you guys are too controversial. We want to show them mainstream stuff. We want to show them CNN or cat videos or whatever. But even people are like, no, we want to see Atheist Republic, and YouTube is like, no, we don't think you want this. We're like, no, please show it to us. We say to you, we want to see Atheist Republic. And YouTube is like, no, we think we know what's better for you than you yourself. So, to solve that, there's a link in the description, which is to our newsletter. So hopefully we could email it to you. So hopefully you get some of our content that way, okay? So, yeah, subscribe to our newsletter as well. And share our videos, because we do get demonetized. That's an obvious on every one of our videos. So F that. But we don't care about that anymore. But we also get deprioritized. And that's even more damaging to us. Deprioritized, what does that mean? That means we don't show up on the suggested, videos on the right and all that, on people's homepages. And that's how channels grow. Unfortunately, we can't grow. So we need you guys to share our videos.